Ain't no half stepping on Marcus J. Every time I hear that song, I just trip because a lot of times people listening to James Brown and they getting into the beats and all of that kind of stuff. But I encourage anybody to go back. If you're listening to me right now, just go and Google the lyrics to James Brown's Funky President. That song, it might be one of the deepest songs he ever made. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Shout out to my brother K-Dub listening to us down there in the ATL. Shout out to everybody that's listening to us. We see the lights on back home in New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey, my hometown. And of course, we have some folks listening to us out on the West Coast tonight, as well as down in the ATL area. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. At the time of the show, every single week, we always profile a missing and or exploited child. This week is no different. I'm getting this one from blackandmissinginc.com. Zamira McGill. Zamira McGill is a black female who stands 5'5", 120 pounds. She has been missing since October 3rd, 2014. She's 15 years old. She is missing from Rockville, Maryland. She doesn't wear any glasses or contacts or anything like that. There's a pair of she's wearing glasses in this photo, but apparently those are just kind of stylish glasses. She doesn't need them, so she might try to disguise how she looks. She was last seen in the 14,700 block of Latakia Place in Rockville, Maryland. The circumstances of her disappearance are unknown, but she is known to frequent Bowie, Maryland, and the police and her family are concerned for Zamira's emotional and physical well-being. Every time I see that, I get a little bit nervous for our babies. So please, 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 particularly in the Northern Virginia, D.C., and Maryland area, we know we got a lot of love in that area. So if you're listening, please keep your eyes open for Zamira McGill. Contact the National Center for Missing or Exploited Children. Hit them on their website, missingkids.com. Contact blackandmissinginc.com or call 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678. 1-800-843-5678 or your local authorities. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Mr. LP, when we were talking during the break, you said that you wanted to make a quick clarification of something that you heard right at the end.
Yes, when you're taking that much vitamin C or E, you can urinate it out very fast and it also cause acid issues. I still agree, not to dismay what brother previously said, just to take it in portions throughout the day, but not so much. Be careful of your amount. Know your body weight in proportion.
Ain't no half stepping with Marcus. Also, I just got another hit in our social media. Not only is my brother K-Dub listening to us, but of course Mrs. Dub is right there listening as well. So I want to say, hey, boo. I know I only do that because I know it pisses K-Dub off. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Mr. LP, you want to tell us the listeners who we have here joining us here in studio?
Yes, I have a young, wonderful lady I met over a year or so ago, and who, when she first came in, the connection was already there. She is very inspiring, very loving, very one of the sweetest people in the world, and I can honestly say probably more sweeter than me. Those who know me know where I'm coming from, and she's been there to help me out through thick and thin. We both been at each other necks all the time, but we do what we can in love. I want to introduce you to wonderful and talented, the electrified and enchanting and sweet Millie Ray. Right.
Thank you, Stephen.
Stephen, you are something else, man. We're sitting here looking at you like, man, will you get on with it?
I was doing it because I know it pisses her off.
Is that what it is? Is that what it is?
She doesn't like the attention.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here on not only Legacy Internet Radio, but on the flagship show of Legacy Internet Radio, Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. So it's a pleasure to have you. The pleasure is all mine. And I guess I got one question for you before we get into it.
Sure.
You ready to ask what the hell?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we're going to ask what
she
the
says
hell.
That all the time.
Before I even get into anything else, I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't mention you haven't heard her voice here tonight, and it's because we're without my co-host, S.Y. Butler, tonight. But I know for a fact that she is someplace close to all our hearts, as well as close to her speakers, because she is at home listening to us tonight.
Blessings to you.
So my sister, my big sister and the co-host of Ain't No Hashtag with Marcus J. Shout out to my sister, SY. And hopefully you are somewhere happy, and that's for you. Hopefully I didn't creep too many people out with my bad singing, but that's kind of a little bit of an inside joke. And she's also saying that it's not good to OD on vitamin C. So she is jumping in there with you as well. So Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. Let's move on. We're going to ask what the hell. And the first, I actually kind of teased about a rapper who said some not so cool things about himself. Now, normally a dude who literally changed his name from Terrence Hatch and decided that Terrence Hatch was no longer a good enough name, that he wanted to be known as Lil Boosie. Normally, I wouldn't give someone named Lil Boosie any time on Ain't No Hashtag with Marcus J. Because y'all know that, you know, as my brother said would tell me, I'm a hip-hop snob. I just am. I like East Coast hip-hop, and I like 80s and 90s hip-hop. Anything that's not there, I might listen to it, but I ain't really tripping off of it. And Lil Boosie falls into that category. Lil Boosie was recently released from prison earlier this year on a conviction for drug smuggling. Why the hell are we talking about Lil Boosie? Well, he had an interview this week where he explained that he didn't think that white folk were to blame for the problems facing black folk. People always talking all this racist stuff, but the white man ain't waiting in the bushes with a chopper, which, of course, for those folks who ain't from the hood, a chopper means a gun. The white man ain't trying to take the rims off your car. We doing this to each other. So how can you say after white man, he ain't doing nothing, but when you get in trouble doing his job, he ain't doing nothing wrong? Now, I have a interesting perspective on that, but I'm Mr. LP's over there just kind of, it looks like he's getting ready. First of all, before I even giving it to you, I want to shout out to my sister Jackie, who's listening. She's checking in from Philly. Jackie said that this Lil Boosie fella is lost, period. But I want to get your opinion on it. What's your thoughts, Mr. LP?
Yes and no. It's sad that he did not use the time in prison to eloquate his words intelligently. Let me help him out. Yes, there are cases. It's half and half, and I would say more so 70-30. In a lot of, I'm on the line of Harry Belafonte, Bill Cosby, and others, where we need to start checking ourselves, because there's too many people in the line that died, put out there, put about schools, organizations, and we do not do enough supporting each other. We do not do enough to help our different groups, to help get our education, our problems, and help uplift ourselves. You and I both talked about so many times about hiring minority businesses or our groups or black people, what have you, to help elevate, do the same thing that others have. I've always used the words assimilation without, integration without assimilation. I use all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, one, you do not deny your own culture and your history, then you just set yourself up for failure. B, at the same time, we have to answer for ourselves, but you cannot deny the atrocities that many other people have done, not just white people, but other cultures. Everybody has a lot of egg on their face, and we need to, instead of now at this point, we need to start checking ourselves and see what we could do better. I would rather hear from Little Boosie, what now that he is out, what are some steps he's doing to make himself better, versus traveling around rapping about the same drug game and craziness that put him in trouble in the first place.
Melly, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree with Steven. Also, I just have to say, it's never been about blacks and whites and like all that, but it's always been about poverty, because, and honestly, I think the number one growing class of Americans, actually, they say they're going to overtake all basically ethnicities, are the Hispanic people. But a lot of those people are poor. So, I mean, it's just, you can't say something like that and just make a complete basically you can't just say something like that and not realize that you're stereotyping, and answering in prejudice.
Right. And on hashtag on Marcus J. Tiffany in Chicago is checking in. She's asking, who is this coon? Here's my thing with this guy, man. And it's basically kind of to piggyback. I mean, there's not really much that I could add to that. You both kind of very, very eloquently said what I was thinking, but I'll just add this, man. I just get really disheartened when I hear young people speak in such negative ways about themselves. You know, when you look in the mirror and you don't see greatness, you know, this is someone who is promoting a record, and I don't know his music. I don't know what he talks about in his music, so I'm not going to really comment on his music, but I do know that he just got out of jail for drug smuggling. You know what I mean? And so why were you smuggling drugs, little Boosie? You know what I mean? And so when you say that whites aren't to blame for problems facing black people, on the surface, I understand why one would say that.
Right.
Because
I agree with that
because
too.
on an individual level, you're not someone, you know, you're not someone that can point to the white man and say, white man, you're the reason directly for my problems. A lot of people, I like to steal this line from my brother K-Dub, create the world you live in. He was saying that when we was kids, create the world that you live in. So on the one hand, you know, I kind of understand it, but then when you start talking about people talking about all this racist stuff about the white man waiting in bushes, blah, 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 I think that you would be, you do yourself a disservice when you say it like that, one. And two, if you don't understand the historical context of what you're saying with regards to how privilege in this country can take you so much further than lack of privilege can. For example, when you have someone who generationally has lived in poverty, your options may be somewhat limited. Whereas,
that's all you know.
That's all you know. Whereas your counterpart that lives on the other part of town, who lived not in poverty, but quite the opposite, who has lived in affluence and may even suffer from affluenza, those folks will be on the opposite spectrum to some of the things that you actually deal with. And those are the people oftentimes are making the rules and making the laws, and those are the people who set it up so that you can have a little itty bitty tiny piece of crack rock in your pocket, which most people who are dealing with crack are in impoverished neighborhoods, and most of those impoverished neighborhoods are black neighborhoods. So if you're dealing with crack, chances are, and of course there's white people deal with crack. That's not what I'm saying. Don't send me emails, oh, white people do crack too. Don't waste my time with that bullshit. Just understand what I'm saying. If you got a little tiny crack rock, you're going to jail for 5 years. If you got powder cocaine, probably in a higher amount, you may not go to jail at all. You know what I mean? And that's the way the laws were written by the first black president, Bill Clinton. And every time, and I say that with my tongue firmly in my cheek, because I think it's nonsense anytime somebody says that, Millie.
Oh, well, I just wanted to point out that basically less than 1% of the population controls more than 10% of the entire wealth of our nation. I mean, I hate to say this, but they are considered the blue-blooded like whites.
Yes.
So, I mean, that is absolutely true. And for a long time, our laws were written by those same exact less than 1% of the population who control more than 10%.
That the laws were made to benefit them.
That is correct.
Versus the entire country. That's why when I get mad to certain levels, everybody want to hold everything to the Constitution, the birthplace of our land. Well, it was not made for us. It was not made for you or anyone in this room. So how can I justifiably understand that? The second part of that is just for little Boosie and anybody out there. This is where the fault comes, where you need to educate yourself. Take your children and educate yourself and expose them yourself and your family to other different things out there in this world. Keep in mind, little Boosie's from the South. Other than his recent fame with music, that's all he's going to see and maybe experience, and only just the immediate short-term wealth. But how much have you took time to integrate yourself and understand not just that it's there, but how did we get there as well? For a quick example, a lot of people don't know on the side of the street in Florida you can buy yourself a drumstick, like we can buy a hot dog. People are like, oh my God, it's just uncivilized. No, that's just how it was culturally there. Same thing as it's It's just as cool as we may be going to church. Someone may be having church in the middle of the beach, sun surfing after church in out west. It's just that people are misinformed, and that's the problem.
I agree. Ain't no how step on Marcus J. Live from the Den, LegacyInternetRadio.com. We're the flagship show here on Legacy Internet Radio. Thank you to everybody that's listening to us on TuneIn. We know we picked up some extra listeners tonight, so I want to thank everybody that's listening to us tonight for the first time. Tell a friend, tell a bunch of friends, like, share our information in social media, help us continue to grow, be one of the fastest growing internet radio stations here in the Richmond, Virginia area and beyond. Of course, we encourage everybody to check out all of our replays. We've got archives that go back well over a year, 2 years maybe, on YouTube. We've been doing this a long time, and it's because of you guys listening to us every week that we continue to do this. Last thing I'll say on Lil Boosie, it's really not about him. For me, it's more about the mentality of our youth who just haven't gotten to a point in their lives where they've done self-study. You know, and when I say self-study, I don't necessarily mean you as an individual. I mean you as a culture, because you can't really analyze where you're going unless you've really studied where you've been, understand why you are in a position that you are. And so when you make a statement like, you know, whites ain't in the bushes with the chopper, you know, you really speak to your ignorance. And the scary part about it, like we talked about Rush Limbaugh earlier on, is one of, you know, the biggest talk show hosts here, aside from you and I, Stephen, here in the country, you know, because we're second and third, you being second and me being third. You know, when you have that kind of power, for lack of a better term, or people listening to you, in this case, we're talking about Rush Limbaugh, and in this case, we're talking about Lil Boosie. You got people that are following you, man. And you really want, if you're going to be leading like that, you don't want to be talking about nonsense.
See, that's where I was beginning on with my show all the time, where I fuss so much when it comes to the music and all this stuff, because it's like we don't have that many opportunities to make a statement, you know, that can be impactful. And every time we come out our mouths, we're doing something idiotic.
Well, not every time, but I think yeah, I do. But where I will take you to task on that, because I've taken you to task in the past, is when you look at the record companies and you look at the people who are in the positions of power to put this information out, it ain't nobody that looks like us.
No,
these are the people. This is the they that we're talking about. But again, if you're talking about someone who grew up in a poverty-stricken area and they tell them, "I'm gonna give you this phantom car and I'm gonna give you all of this money and I'm gonna give you all of this kind of stuff, all you got to do is sell out your people," I'm gonna tell you something. There are more people that's going to sell out the people than going to do the right thing, and I hope you know that. And I know you know that.
But you're right. But my goal and our goal in this is that we talk about all the time about building our legacy. We need to encourage the change,
and we do, and we do. But what you're not getting, what you never get, is that some people aren't as morally.
A lot of people are not.
A lot of people are morally bankrupt.
No, I get,
and they just ain't going to do it.
Tired. We talk about the millennials. Coach Chrome talked about. We agreed with you. We talk about this millennium generation. They don't care about the past. They don't care about the future. They just care about their dang selves.
Jackie is still listening to us. Jackie is saying that we're not reaching out to these guys. The Lil Boosies of the world need guidance. Black men need to stop allowing young men like Lil Boosie to fail on their watch. They need role models. Definitely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I think I don't want to suggest that there are not a lot of us out here doing it, but I do agree that there needs to be a whole lot more. Millie, you were going to say something?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest thing is once you become famous, a lot of people don't realize it, but they bring their kind of trash with them. I mean, you know, I mean, it might be unresolved feelings, it might be, you know, emotions, any kind of issues, but they kind of bring it with them. And I mean, it's a sad thing, but I mean, it's true.
I 100% agree with that. I actually said something similar, Millie, on a previous show, but I'll take it a step further. I think that when you make it, I think that particularly black folk, and I know, you know, some of our white brothers and sisters and people in other communities will take me to task on this, but I'm going to tell you why. I think that we as black people have a greater responsibility to reach back and pull, each other is because we are the only community that I can see that is taking the task for supporting our own. If you shop black, why you gotta go to shop black? If you pro-black, why you gotta be pro-black? Everybody else does it. Jewish people do it. Jewish people buy from Jewish people. Spanish people buy from Spanish people. Obviously, white folk buy from white folk. And so when black people do it, it's like, oh, you a racist, which you can't be because you ain't got no power. So you can't be a racist, but you're a bigot because you supporting your own. We the only people to get looked at like it's something wrong with us when we do that. And that's why I think that those of us who make it, we have a greater responsibility to make sure that we take care of our own. That don't mean there's a new TV show on Stars right now called Survivor's Remorse that's produced by LeBron James. It doesn't mean that you go back to the old neighborhood and buy Jordans for everybody. That's not what that means. But it could mean that you have a seminar that teaches people how to create businesses and create money, or maybe you start a business in your own neighborhood. And I'm sure somebody like LeBron James does that. I have always said that not only do we have a greater responsibility to do it, but I think we have a greater responsibility to be seen doing it. Because if we all know that, man, this world is competition based, man. If you see me making it, you're going to want to do better than me. And if you want to do better than me in a positive way, everybody is going to.
Albeit, then we're all the better.
Everybody's going to be the better
wins.
for it. Warren always said. Warren Ballantyne always says, "You push me, I'll pull you." You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
We used to have fun in school. Like, shoot, I made an A. I'm gonna get it. Like, if I got a 97 in the A, I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna get a 98. It was just always that push.
We did it. Ain't no half step on Marcus J. Now, similar to how Lil Boosie had some pretty controversial comments, so did a child star. Actually, before I get to that, I see you said, I meant to get your comment in a minute ago, said we bashing the South. I don't think that we was bashing the South. I think we was bashing Lil Boosie. But I did say that me personally, I am, because of you said calling me a hip hop snob. I am in fact a hip hop snob. Don't
worry, I'm with you though. I got your back.
I've already put it out there. But I did tease earlier that a former child star said some pretty controversial things here, and so I'm not going to try to paraphrase it. I'm gonna let y'all hear it yourselves. Talking about Raven-Symone, who was on the Oprah Winfrey Network last night, talking to Oprah about how she's tired of being labeled. This is on the Oprah show. Where Are We Now? Take a listen to Raven-Symone talking to Oprah, and then we're gonna talk about it. All right, hold up. I think I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties. Bear with me. I'm going to get that audio. But we talked before about Raven-Symone. Actually, I teased before that Raven-Symone said that she did not want to be labeled as gay and that she did not want to be labeled as African American. I think, okay, there we go. We got the audio. Here we go.
The tweet was, "I can finally get married. Yay, government, so proud of you." Wow. That was August 2nd, 2013. So was that your way of coming out, of saying you were gay?
That was my way of saying I'm proud of the country. But yeah. I will say that I'm in, an amazing, happy relationship with my partner, a woman. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, my mother and people in my family, they've taught me to keep my personal life to myself as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So I try my best to, hold the fence where I can, but I am proud to be who I am and what I am.
So when did you know who you were and what you were?
In that topic of dating and in love, I knew when I was like 12. I was looking at everything.
Were you looking at boys and girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a word for it? Because I think when you're younger, you don't even have language for what it is.
I don't need language. I don't need a categorizing statement for it. I think that's one thing that
So you don't want to be labeled gay?
I don't want to be labeled gay. I want to be labeled a human who loves humans. I'm tired of being labeled. I'm an American. Mm-hmm. I'm not an African American. I'm an American.
Oh, girl, don't set up the Twitter on fire.
I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
My Lord. What did you just say? Stop the tape right now. Okay.
I will say this.
What?
I don't know where my roots go to. Mm-hmm. I don't know how far back they go. I can't go on, I don't know how far back, and I don't know what country in Africa I'm from, but I do know that my roots are in Louisiana. I'm an American, and that's a colorless person, because we're all people. I have lots of things running through my veins.
I mean, you're going to get a lot of flack for saying you're not African American. You know that, right?
I don't label myself.
Okay. So I want you to say what you really mean by that.
What I really mean by that is I'm an American. That's what I really mean. I have darker skin. I have a nice, interesting grade of hair. I connect with Caucasian. I connect with Asian. I connect with Black. I connect with Indian. I connect with each culture.
You are a melting pot in one body.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
Isn't that what America's supposed to be?
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
That's
for
what
sure.
it's supposed to be. I personally feel that way.
Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. She said that she's not African American / black. Y'all know me. I don't say African American. I say black. She ain't black and she ain't gay. Millie, what you think when you hear a person decide that they don't want to be labeled, so they make a point of rejecting what, based on what you know about them, they kind of are? What do you think about that?
I could not even believe that she made that comment. I do understand where she's coming from, that she just refuses to be labeled. However, I mean, can we use Black American instead of African American, and maybe, I don't know, some other word for gay? I mean, if it suits her better. I think that if she doesn't want to be categorized as anything, I mean, she kind of just categorized herself.
Stephen, I know you were listening to that comment, and I know that you got comments on this. What's your thoughts, man?
Without being rude, she seriously needs education, and obviously she needs to go back and watch Bill Cosby shows that she grew up in. At the very least.
Agree with you on that.
I mean, because it's like one of the things about it that he taught, and he tried to show other elements of cultures and history and a variety of things that I'm always teased at for whatever reason for doing. The thing is, okay, you may be mixed from other generations. That's fine. If you want to be labeled a certain way, she's saying she not want to be labeled and she's American. Thus, if you're a citizen of this country, you're labeled just by definition. The problem is that this is where, again, I say integration without assimilation. She's now in a different level of, I don't want to be with part of anything. I don't want to be white, black, whatever, because she feels that that's going to attach something to her. Newsflash, only thing's going to attach to you if you allow it, mentally, spiritually, and anything else. If so, no one says, like, if you're black, you have to only do this, because we get teased, and we're in our culture, we do that a lot. How many times because I do something else, or if we see somebody else doing something different that's usually historically black. For example, if we yell at Taylor Swift and Miley twerking, okay, let them. Oh, you trying to rip off? They just doing it for fun, and no one says they're doing it to pick on you.
Right.
So it's the same thing. So in this situation here, she just needs to really understand her culture,
right,
her history. And if she don't know, guess what? She got some money.
Yeah.
So, so you can go get yourself the DNA, call the dude. What's the dude on PBS, Obama's friend again?
I know you're talking about
Henry
Louis Gates.
Yeah, call Mr. Gates up. He'll love to have you. He's calling you right now.
Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Get a couple of comments in. First of all, Hakeem is checking in. Hakeem's listening. What's up, bro? Hakeem representing Jersey. Michelle K is listening. What's up, Michelle? SY, my co-host, is listening. Says that the Raven-Symone needs to seek some therapy. There's a reason for the identity crisis. And then she's laughing at the comment, happy human, damn nut. Here's my deal with Raven-Symone. Let's kind of put this whole thing in context. Actually, before I comment, let me get a comment. Miss Dub is listening. Miss Dub says that she sounds like a naive child trying to sound like an educated adult. She seems to be holding on to hurt she may have experienced coming out about her sexual identity. She's unfortunately relating the two. Just because she hasn't traced her roots doesn't mean it's not there to be found. And Jackie is laughing at her saying, please don't label me black. And Miss Dub definitely says that she is definitely black. So we got a lot of interesting comments in there. And so let me just make mine on here. Raven-Symone is a person who we have seen since she was 4 years old. And she's grew up in affluence. And she has lived quite comfortably for her entire life, from the time she was a kid, obviously, to she was a millionaire as a teenager. That does not necessarily preclude a person from having a cultural identity, but it can be a contributing factor. And anybody who wants to disagree with me on that one, I give you Tiger Woods, who is another example of someone who grew up in the upper economic side of the line, who had some identity crisis and made a point of saying, "Don't call me black." I think a lot of times people look at being black as a negative. And I don't think that Raven can come right out and say, "Don't call me black. I don't want to be black," or "I don't want to be gay," because I think it's very obvious that she is both. But I think that when one does not have an opportunity to live the black experience, so to speak, or the black culture, so whatever the hell that means, I don't know what that means. But I think it's one of those things, you kind of know it when you see it, or you know it when you feel it. I think a lot of those people have a difficult time identifying directly with black culture. Somebody like our president, Barack Obama, was able to get that culture when he married Michelle Obama. You know, and you watch the TV show Blackish, I think that's what Anthony Anderson's character is trying to avoid, raising a person that's going to grow up to think like Raven-Symone. If you think about somebody like Will and Jada, for example, we know that Will grew up in the hood of Philadelphia, one of the roughest parts, you know, in West Philadelphia, born. We all know his story. You know, Jada grew up in Baltimore in the hood, but they raising, by most accounts, two pretty weirdo kids. You know what I mean? So I don't know what those kids think about their black experience, but from what I've seen, they don't remind me of no black kids I ever saw.
Well, see,
there is where you might run into some identity crisis. Okay,
well then that's where you can come along the lines of black experience, and I did a paper on this, several of them. Here's the problem. The thing is, most of the people who are black will feel that if you don't have some type of way of experiencing some level of poor, you trying to make it or live in a certain predominantly black area, then you don't have the black experience. Whereas that they don't understand that you could be black does not mean rich, black does not mean poor. It could be all things, just as white could be all things of anything else. I challenge two questions, and I agree with everything, but I challenge two questions. One, I must say that Oprah's taken to task of not taking her to task further and going forward with this, because this is not the first time Raven said this.
Well, Oprah didn't want to do it. You can tell if you looked at the clip. I mean, it's one thing to hear it, you know, and you guys are hearing it. I don't know if you guys watched it last night, but we just watched that clip, and you can see Oprah didn't want no part of that. And she said, "You Lord, you about to set Twitter." She didn't want no part of that, and it's odd for her.
But keep in mind, Oprah also has an audience who is majority.
Yeah, but I'm not going to hang that on Oprah, because that's not something. And this is just my opinion and my experience with Oprah. I've been an Oprah disciple since I was a kid. I was the kid who came home to watch Oprah, and I still am an Oprah fan. You know, black kid in the hood likes Oprah. I know how weird that is, but that's just how.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's you know, that's how I am. And we know that the show, for the most part, was marketed to middle-aged white women. But one thing that and this is just my opinion, I never saw Oprah sell out with regards to how her blackness. There's certain things that I would like to have seen her do that she did not do.
I agree with that. I don't consider her a sell.
But as far as selling out the black experience, my personal opinion, and hey, you want to debate me on that, feel free. 804-402-2893 if you want to do that. Jackie says the Willie Lynch mentality, and K-Dub says that it's called mentally whitewashed. And Melanie says Monarch programming is something else regarding Raven. Her handlers tell her what to say. That's an interesting comment. Millie, you want to get in here?
Yeah, well, I feel honestly that Raven is rejecting herself when she's saying this. I mean, I don't think she has a very high self-esteem or confidence. But I did want to say that historically, because of British colonization, being fair or being white has always been considered a very good thing. I mean, I'm not saying that it is or it isn't. I mean, I'm just saying that for years, look at the Japanese and the Chinese. All they want to do is be as fair as possible. Same with Indians, Muslims, anywhere you go. People want to be fair because they think they'll be treated better. Fair in color, because they think they'll be treated better.
If you don't mind, explain your heritage. You told me the story.
Oh, well, I am Indian and heritage.
Well, you told me how one color in northern India and the southern India, the different color lines.
Well, literally, you could draw lines between North and South India because the northern people in India are much fairer, and those in the South India are very, very dark.
Right.
But how were they treated? How were you treated in your family? Because there's different colors within your own family.
Well, I'll be honest, I've spent a lot of time indoors, so I do tend to get a little bit fairer.
Yeah.
And especially since my mother is historically from northern India, I have a little bit more fair color to me. But if I were to spend, like 3 summers all out in the sun, I would definitely be darker than anyone I know, and I'm saying that as most black people. I would actually be darker than most black people.
And your story is very interesting, and I think Steven can make his point himself, but I think the reason why he wanted you to specifically say that is to draw the parallel between us as black men, you as an Indian woman, but one of the problems or situations that we kind of deal with in our culture is the color of our skin, colorism. That's a word that I learned from the dating pool diva who joins us for the Diva Diaries on the 4th Monday every single month here on Legacy and Net Radio on Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. First of all, thank you everybody that's listening to us on TuneIn live right now on Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J, as well as those folks that are listening to us replay this. The brown paper bag test is something that many of us in the black community are very, very familiar with. It's something that they did years ago where if you were lighter than a brown paper bag, you was cool. And if you were darker than a brown paper bag, then you ain't cool. And